All right, guys, welcome to this episode of the Your Fifth Friend podcast, where we are believers that you are a combination of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And we're here to be your fifth friend and hopefully provide you with the knowledge, education, hopefully entertainment necessary to continue to progress in everything on a business level, personal level, and all of the above. How we doing today? It's Thursday. Been a good week. From back in town. I was traveling last week to Toronto for some work stuff. Good to be back. I feel like whenever I travel, I immediately get sick. And it's good to be like recovered now at this point.
How was the trip? What did you do?
It was pretty cool. Went to Toronto, just in and out pretty quick. I was in there for 3 days. I actually went to Niagara Falls for just like a work event. And we can talk about it a little bit later, but it was like a partnership event. We hosted a dinner for like one of our biggest partners that we have. And we took them all out to a dinner. We had drinks, had a conversation with them, and it was like a really good time. Definitely a very fruitful trip. But it was in like the Niagara Falls area. Niagara Falls is an absolute dump outside of the falls, though, for sure.
You hosted the event? I thought you were going to an event. So this was TalentPop.
So what it was sponsored event. So Gorgeous, which is like a help desk in the e-com space, they were having a retreat for their sales as well as their partnerships team. So they had like 30 something people there, half sales, half partnerships team, do like a retreat. And what they did was smart is they just had like a couple of their biggest partners be like, hey, do you want to talk to our whole team? If so, just like pay for the whole thing for us. So we did it. And like we sponsored, we pretty much just covered everything for them. So we went to like an orchard and we had some ciders, and I had 2.5 hard ciders, and it was just like my Whoop. No, it wasn't. I didn't feel anything really, but my Whoop 8% readiness score the next day.
Recovery score.
Recovery.
Right?
Yeah. 8%. Never drinking again, man. Terrible decision. But really, really good outcome. They did a really good job putting it all together, where it was like network with everyone, see some people I've met in person, see some people I met at events or just on Zoom calls, which was great. Just build some rapport. They gave us like a 30-minute time slot to like pitch their whole team. And that was really, really good, just to kind of like get everyone educated on what we do.
So you just 4 ciders deep screaming at them.
I just said, listen, guys, sit down, wear your seatbelts.
It's over.
You said that?
No, I'm just kidding. And then afterwards they did it. It was like a dinner. It was a really, really good dinner. But what was cool about it is like they had like myself and the partner manager that came with me. We sat at different tables. And then like during the like appetizers, like a group of people would sit around us. And then when like the dinner came, like they all switched with another group. And then when the dessert came, they all switched with another group.
So it's almost like speed dating.
It gave us a lot of like FaceTime to speak to all sorts of different people there. So it just allowed like the message to get broadcast.
You got to touch everybody.
Physically and mentally.
Spiritually.
Yeah. But it was cool. But it was in Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is really, really beautiful. I've been there like 10 years ago. But it's like a rundown Reno, Nevada. It's like there's like casinos there. There's like 25 haunted houses. It's like you go there and it's this beautiful sighting, but you see it and it's like the Grand Canyon. It's like when you see it, you see it. It's like dope. It's really, really sick. But then like 25 seconds later, it's like, all right, cool.
It's just a one.
Now what do these kids do?
One hit wonder.
Yeah. So they're like building like racetracks for you to like go-kart race and like, like I said, like 15 Ripley's, believe it or not, museums. Kind of a dump, but definitely something that everyone should go see. Recommend it.
Shout out to everybody in Niagara
Big shout
Falls.
out to the city of Niagara.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Lost a couple of your Niagara subscribers. Dude, I went on a fishing voyage like I said I would. Woke up in the morning, picked up my brother and his friend, drove an hour and 10 minutes to this place. It was gorgeous. Let me just set the precedent. It was absolutely stunning. Small little lake. It's called Lake Gregory. It's by Arrowhead. But we didn't go to Arrowhead because we couldn't rent a boat there. So we said, let's go here. It's bright and early. We get on the boat. First L of the day. When we rented the boat, I didn't know that it wasn't like a gas-powered or electric-powered boat. There was no engine. They gave us a rowboat.
No.
And I was like, dude, like, I'm the first one here. Like, let me rent one of the electrical or motorboats. The guy's like, no. Like, you don't understand. We're not giving it to you because you don't fucking have any. Like, this isn't a thing here. You just have to row your ass around the boat.
You just you looked into your brother's eyes and you just gondoled him around.
No, I didn't do it. I was like, listen, you little cocksuckers. Like,
you put him to work.
I was like, I brought you here. I bought your food. I bought the boat. I bought everything. You guys are going to be the labor for the evening. So they're rowing around all over the place. And dude, I made sure to cover all of the boxes. I talked to the fishermen there. I talked to the people that were at the tackle shop. I covered all bases. Like, dude, It's been a hot pocket here. Like everybody that comes through catches a ton of fish and then they leave.
They just like refilled the fish too.
Exactly. Like they just put in a ton of
restocked.
catfish and they just put in a ton of trout. So dude, I'm salivating at the mouth.
Did you
I'm
come
like,
with your super bait?
dude, I came with every bait, super bait, master bait, all the bait. I came with everything. We get on the water. We're talking to the fishermen around us too. Like, dude, we're catching fish left and right. Like it's a frenzy. Dude, I'm so excited to get the day going. 30 minutes goes by, no bite. An hour goes by, no bite. 2 hours goes by, no bite. 3 hours goes by, no bite. 4 hours go by, absolutely no bite. We had 5 fishing rods in this little lake. We went to every corner and we got nothing.
That was an epic fail.
And that was the trip. That was literally the trip.
So you just got gondolaed around this lake, nothing to show for it. You guys, like at that point, you should have made your brother like dive into the lake and try to catch it by hand.
Dude, we tried like some guy. So there was a little guy. What's that thing that we saw? It's not like a boat. It's like a little floaty that you can paddle around. Yeah. It's not like a kayak and it's not like a canoe, but it's this like tactical fisherman floaty. Anywho, this guy's in it and he has an actual fish finder that he Velcroed to the side of his boat.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, are there fish anywhere? And he looked and he's like, dude, they're everywhere beneath us. I'm going crazy. So he knew like we had the confirmation, dude, that the fish were in there. They just looked at us and they said, fuck these guys. And they went the other way.
What were you using as your bait?
We had one power bait. We had 2 power baits. We had 1 shad. We had 1 power worm. And we had 1 that was like a lure. So like
you were not going organic, non-GMO is what the problem was. You were bringing your bunk ass Mission VA super bait here trying to cheat the system.
I bought fresh bait when I was there. Everything
so
was brand new.
It wasn't a bait problem.
It wasn't a bait problem. It was an us problem.
There's no technique that you can be doing to get them to.
We did the same exact technique. You drop shot your power bait all the way to the bottom. You leave about 2 feet by where the weight is and where the hook is. So when it's in the water, it's floating above the weeds. When it's hot outside, trout like to go deep in the water because it's colder. So we were at the perfect temperature. We were at the perfect like length from the bottom of the lake up until where they would be feeding. Nothing. But anywho, I got a sunburn. I came back. I got to spend some time with my brother. It was great. I like 0-4 over the past like 2 years.
It's okay. There's always more
Maybe
opportunities.
we retire.
No. I'm going to build my own lake, put in my own fish, catch my own fish.
Cheat the system.
And call it a day. All right, what are we talking about today, Arman?
Guys, so today we want to kind of dive more into, agency life. We both, Saman, Ashkan, and I, all 3 of us, we've built agencies and we want to kind of talk about, how we were able to build our agency the way that we have. What are some of the best practices to growing an agency? What are the things that you're going to find in terms of obstacles as you go through that journey to build an agency, and just kind of talk about, this agency topic. So first and foremost, Ash, I'd love for you to kind of share, we didn't just start TalentPop as our first agency. We've had another agency in the past. Let's kind of dive into that backstory and how we got to a point where we were ready to grow and scale an agency like TalentPop. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my first thing immediately outside of college. So I was in college, was working at a big ad agency called Hill Holiday. It was like one of the 200 people that was working on like the Liberty Mutual client doing next to nothing all day. And like got a chance to like see what it was like to like work with brands head on and have those conversations. But it's just like I was a small piece of a massive pie and wasn't that great of an opportunity there. Didn't like I learned a lot, but it wasn't that impactful. And from there, what ended up happening, long story short, moved over to California and I started my own agency specifically in the marketing space. I was like, all right, cool. I know how to market. I know how to advertise. I have an idea. There's all this software that exists out there after just worming around the internet, identifying different software to do things.
Shout out to Mass Planner.
Yeah, like there's some wormier stuff than that before that. But like just identified software that was like, all right, cool. There's like an arbitrage of like, this is really, really valuable for big businesses. Like, let's apply this to the small business here as well too. So we were helping at the time it started off with helping personal trainers grow like their following on social media to go and acquire new customers. It was actually working like decently well. We were charging like $120 a month for a personal trainer, and we were helping them with some like we would put them into some service, like a software product that we had that would help them grow their following organically by just automatically engaging with specific people. And this was in like 2013, where a lot of that stuff was like relatively on the low. It was way before like the whole influencer world exploded. It was prior to all of that stuff. And we had like our own little niche in that space. But what we identified is like, we had maybe 30, 40 clients. We're making, $4,000 to $5,000 a month from it. It was like really, really big. My first successful like entrepreneurial outcome.
Profitable
but
too.
Like it was profitable. Yeah. But what ended up happening with it is, like I was dealing with personal trainers, and personal trainers, like that's not necessarily the most stable business in the entire world. So churn would be high. Some of them would stick around for a long time. Sometimes churn would be high. I also had no idea like how to operate a business at the time. I had a full-time job at the same time, and I wasn't taking it as seriously as like I probably could have. It probably would have been a bigger opportunity. But that's where it all started. And what was cool is like anyone can do that. Anyone can identify the arbitrage of all the technology that exists in space, offer as a service. And the good thing about these service-based in like businesses or agencies is the fact that it's like very, very low cost. It's your labor. You're putting the labor in, and the software already exists, or the service doesn't cost anything. And you can just put it out in the marketplace, and you just immediately start producing profit right then and there, because everything you sell, you don't have the staff, you don't have this overhead, you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of expenses every single month. Like we do now. It's like whatever's coming in is literally just going directly into your pocket. And I think it's a really great like starter business for anyone that's new in the make money online scene to begin walking into. I feel like everyone, for the most part, that like enters the space has started off their career in this agency world as well. But that's where it started for us. We then went the next rational approach, which is like, all right, let's try working with the next like probably horrible audience to sell to, which is like gyms as well too. Another similar scenario. And then we picked the next audience as real estate agents. So we were not great in our like selection process of identifying like the proper total addressable market, but it allowed us to, speak directly to business owners, have conversations, learn to sell. And it was definitely a massive learning opportunity and a way for us to step away from like our 9-to-5 job that we had, and like really create something. So it was definitely a good start, and really what got me into my entrepreneurial career, and last thing I did before, never having a job ever again.
Yeah. And then as we kind of matured in that business, we dove from, offering that kind of service on Instagram to help grow social following to, a couple other offerings. One was building websites. So we helped, some personal trainers, some local businesses, anyone honestly that we could try to get in contact with.
Anyone that had a pulse.
Yeah, anyone that had a pulse, we would, offer web design services. And this is another arbitrage opportunity is, right? We knew how to design the website in terms of showcasing what would be important and what, brands would need to have on their website. But we weren't the developers by any means. We had a team in India that helped us with building out the website while we made sure that we project managed that. That even to this day is still very much an opportunity for anyone that wanted to get in that game of project managing and opening up opportunities to build websites, to work with a backend dev team that can do that work. So we got into that, business. We did that for quite a while. We eventually kind of migrated to offering this for e-commerce brands as well. So building e-commerce websites through Shopify, building out those kind of, landing pages for them, their product pages, etc. So we built those different types of pages out. And then on top of that, we started doing the paid advertising. And that's when we started to truly learn about the agency model and, how to offer a service. So Ashton, you want to talk a little bit about that specific part of the journey when we started to learn more about the email marketing, the paid advertising, and get more familiarized with that?
So it started off, we were working with personal trainers. That was going well, low AOV, high churn. From there, we work with literally whatever we can get our hands on, whoever would, again, pay us to build a website, run marketing, run ads, anything. We would try to make it work out. Like we had a bunch of time in our hands, a bunch of resources, and no idea what the hell we were doing.
More importantly, you guys had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So no matter how shitty the idea
everything was an opportunity.
Whoever paid, it was like, fuck yeah, we're here.
And we were at that point where it's like backs against the wall. Everything is an opportunity. We're going to go jump on whatever it is that we can. So if you're a local gym and you need a website, or a personal trainer, you need a website, or if you need me to attempt to run ads for you, it's like, I'll do it for $600. And guess what? That's like paying for my rent right then and there. So I had to do that at scale in order to make all of this stuff work out. But eventually like kind of learned what we were doing. And then we dove into the e-com world. So ended up meeting a handful of e-commerce brands and running ads, running email marketing, assisting at the web dev for like e-com brands. That's when we really enjoyed what it is that we were doing, got us into e-commerce. We learned what was important for these e-com business owners. We learned how to drive AOV, how to increase LTV, how to just make things work, how to get them profitable. And at the same time, we were running our own e-com brands. We were trying to get everything to work out. And like we were working on like 6-7 different projects at any given time. Probably 3 or 4 e-com brands, agencies doing all different stuff. And we were just spread super ridiculously thin. But at the same time, it gave us a tremendous amount of exposure to identify different types of models that existed, what was naturally working, what was not working. And I think one of the biggest things that people undervalue is like when you're failing and you're flipping over, like when you're failing, you're forced to flip over more rocks to see if what's under the next rock will work. And you do that over and over again. What you end up doing is getting exposed to all sorts of different things. You get exposed to web dev, you get exposed to graphic design, you get exposed to Facebook, to Google, to all of these things. And even though they all failed, you now have a fundamental understanding of all of these things. And when you have something that does work, you can then take that skill and push it as hard as humanly possible at that one opportunity.
Here's a question that I want to ask that will help frame the thought process that, aspiring, agency owners and people that are kind of on that grind that should learn from these experiences. So we kind of broke down all the different types of things that we did to get to, the place where we made that fundamental shift and focused on, one specific thing. But the question I want to ask is, and anyone can answer this, what did we do right during that journey? And what did we not do right? What did we do wrong? And I think those, the wins and the things that we learned, let's talk about that. And let's talk about like what we obviously overlooked and what now looking back, like were the learning lessons. I want to get both your perspectives on that.
I'll give you one win and one loss, and I'll turn it over to Saman. One win is we jumped on any opportunity that we could potentially find. We were not shy to take on an opportunity. We were not shy to take risk and to attempt whatever opportunity that we thought made any sort of sense and like make that leap. A lot of times I feel like the biggest struggle that people have is making that leap because they don't necessarily feel that they're legit enough to go ahead and do so. We were able to do that without any sort of issue whatsoever. And it allows us to be able to, win some actual opportunities and make things happen and jump off and, parachuting out of our own lane of starting our own businesses. Now, what did we do wrong is we kept doing that. And the next thing you know, you're working on 15 projects at the same time. None of the work is overlapping each other. There's no system to do anything. It's like the next project comes in, you are starting from ground zero here. And I think that's what was like the unsustainable part where like there was no world of us managing 10 clients at the same time without churn. It's like when your attention goes here, it gets lost over there. And the reason why is because we had no process whatsoever built out and we were just doing whatever people wanted us to do, which was a necessity for us to survive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't have an agency, so I can't really speak on this until now.
But maybe you can talk about like from the stories that we told you, what did we do wrong and what do you think we did right and what do we learn during that journey?
Well, I've seen it. I think the biggest thing is exactly what you mentioned. When you spread yourself too thin, like every idea when you suck at coming up with ideas in businesses is a good one. I think you just have to focus. I also think like people focus too much on getting 10 steps ahead when they haven't even taken step 1. Here's a perfect scenario. Somebody comes to somebody that wrote a book and they say, where do I find a publisher? The guy that wrote the book says, have you written the book first? He goes, no, I haven't even started. So then he goes, why the fuck would you ask for a publisher when you haven't even written the book? Right? So it's like, I really believe you should just focus on one thing at any given time and just take one step over the other and not think too far out. But like when you're young and there's so much opportunity and you see everything as exciting and a shiny object, it just innately like it grabs your attention. You don't know any better. I think it's a skill that you have to learn to like hone your focus, and you'll start to sift through good idea versus bad idea. But when you're doing all of it and they pay you any type of money, right? Like $1 made is $1 kept, and $1 kept is a good dollar. But you don't really think about like how much time did I spend on this? Is it worth it? Could I have higher leverage somewhere else? None of it really mattered. It was just, if someone's going to pay me, I'm going to bend over backwards. And when they say jump, I'll say how high.
You have rent to pay and you need to jump on any opportunity that exists, whether it's a good opportunity or a bad one. It's like that needs to be jumped on. You
just take the opportunity in front of you.
Yeah.
Here's some of my thoughts here. So what are the things that we learned from the experience? Number one, by working with a diverse kind of industries that we worked with and doing all these different types of things, we learned a little bit about a lot of different things during that journey. We learned, quite a bit about email marketing. We learned about paid advertising. We learned about social media marketing. We learned about landing page design. We learned on all these things from other people, right? It wasn't like we were really, for the most part, funding those opportunities. We were learning the lessons based on what we were trying our absolute best to support those brands with. So that was definitely a huge takeaway, is being able to implement for those brands. And that's why the agency model, especially when you're first starting and you're trying to be a value add to that person, not if you don't know absolutely nothing, please don't start an agency if you don't have at least somewhat, of a solid skill set. But if you have good kind of instincts and skill sets, you're going to learn a lot by doing it for other people. So that was definitely one, I think, of the big takeaways, is that diversity in what we were able to learn. So that's one thing. Number two, I think when you figure out when you are, working with these brands, you learn what their pain points are and you learn what their mistakes are. You kind of learn the lessons from what these businesses that your clients are, what they're like doing well in their business, what they're not doing well.
Right.
And every single person, every single brand that you work with, there's a nugget you take from them. Right. So being able to
your
work with more
databasing
people,
experience,
your databasing experience, you're learning about the things they do well. You're taking that as a takeaway. You're learning about, hey, like this guy is just a dick and you just, you don't want to be that type of guy. That's a takeaway. So you're learning from every experience, and those deposits will eventually come to fruition if you do it yourself. So I think those were the big wins in the experience. I would say, bar none. The opportunities that exist is there's no focus, right? If you don't have focus, if you don't have a way to do something really, really well consistently, you don't do it because you don't have the ability to scale, right? We were trying to offer marketing services to every industry and becoming a master of nothing rather than being a master of an industry and being able to be recognized from, having that expertise in that single industry.
And I think the big reason why that happened to us is we had no idea. We had no ability to predictively acquire customers ourselves. We had like an idea about it.
I think more than that, it's like you don't know any better. Like I'm not saying this to put anybody down, like all of us, like we weren't particularly good at anything. So it's like whoever was willing to pay was the field of expertise that we were willing to take on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We didn't have enough chops on us to be like, we're only going to focus on this.
Yeah. And as far as like on a moving forward basis, if someone's in that same shoes and they're the ones that are like, I'm working with 10 clients across 10 industries. I have like a 20% churn rate every month. My average tenure of a client is 4 months. Cool. What do you need to do is a couple different things. One is they say the riches are in the niches. You need to focus on one. Though you have like your girlfriend's like gym is in need of your service. Like if you're not servicing the audience, that is going to, in the long run, destroy you.
And you're going to do more harm than good for the client because you're not giving them what they really need.
And you're not the expert.
It's an empty favor.
See, you're exactly right. Now, what should you do is if you can drill in and hone in on an industry. So let's say that it is those gyms again. And it's marketing service for the gym. Something very generic that's out there. Cool. You need to build a solution that's built for them. You need to be able to speak to them in a way that you understand every pain point about them, not surface level what's going on as someone, but you need a deep understanding. We serve e-com. I know exactly what an e-com owner is going through. I've been there. I've lived it. I understand it. I've talked to thousands of these owners. I understand exactly what they're going through. You need to be able to get to that same point for whatever industry that you're selling into. And you need to have a predictable acquisition system that you never, ever, ever turn off. You might turn down, but you never turn off, that allows you to continue to acquire customers at scale at that specific audience. Because in the event that you do not, and you stop acquiring customers there, you start paying attention and you don't do that, what's going to end up happening is you're going to stop acquiring customers, you're going to start paying attention to your customers. Then as churn naturally happens, you're going to have no new customers coming in. Then you're going to apply your focus again towards acquisition because that was turned off. You're going to figure out how to get that going. And you're about to churn out a handful of your clients because you are no longer focusing on servicing those clients there. And it becomes this battle of moving back and forth and back and forth. Whereas if you are industry specific and you can nail down that acquisition channel and you can nail down a sustainable, predictable model to success that is duplicatable, you'll be very, very successful as an agency.
Let's take a step back. Why agency versus e-commerce, and why do I think the benefits of starting an agency first is better off? When you're working in e-commerce, there's a couple of things you have to think about. You have to think about paid ads. You have to think about social media. You have to think about a website. You have to think about ad spend. And you have to think about inventory. And we've talked about it why before, but again, we'll get into it. All of these things are very unique skill sets, but more importantly, it's expensive to do this. And you need, no matter how the cookie crumbles, cash up front. Even if you're not running ads, even if you're the perfect web developer, to do the editing, to do this, and that, like, it requires money. At the end of it all, even if you're drop shipping, right? You may not be paying for inventory, but you're paying for ads. There's always some tug and pull. With an agency, you don't really have a lot of startup. Again, you could build a website on WordPress. You don't have to worry about conversion rate, this and that. It's a landing page. You're talking about who you are, what you do. The labor at that point is yourself and maybe a very marginal amount of software, which is fantastic. I really love the agency over e-commerce because I've come to realize e-commerce businesses, no matter how lucrative some of them are, the majority aren't. It's because the business truly gets paid last. Your advertisers get paid first.
An agency. Which is an agency.
Right. Yeah. Your agencies get paid first. Then whoever your manufacturers are, thank you. Whoever you're spending ads with, that's the Facebooks of the world, this and the world. Like, these people that are supporting e-commerce, I guarantee you, are making way more money than the e-commerce brand is. And the beautiful thing is, unless you bust, they are absolutely getting paid. Their liability is you going bankrupt. And for the most part, any one of these vendors are going to get paid first with no net terms unless it's inventory. But they won't even ship it out to you for the most part unless you pay.
And I think
so. It's like, you look at it from the scope. It's like, am I ready for that responsibility? Can I do it by myself? Is it even worth being there? The barrier to entry is less, but the risk is way higher. If you sink your teeth into an agency, you're going to make less revenue per dollar, yes, but your margins are going to be way higher. And if you can figure out, and I want to talk about this like in depth, people, systems, and acquisition, what you're not building on the revenue side and intensity for e-commerce, you're building an enterprise value, which is also another thing that e-commerce doesn't really have. So I would put all my eggs in that basket, I think, moving forward. I would never really start an e-commerce brand again.
It's an interesting thought. I think there are several, obviously dozens, hundreds of e-commerce brands that are tremendously successful. However, it takes a lot to get an e-commerce brand to the point where you can go to that scale. And realistically, those e-commerce brands need to be a brand. And I think a lot of people think they can just drop a couple products on the site, run paid advertising, and think that this is going to be a business that lasts forever.
Nobody's going to give a shit, dude. It's like, if you're just selling a product, I'm going to spend more money with the person that will, or with the company that will give me clout, that will be recognizable and give me something to talk about all day long. Yeah. Rolex can charge $50,000 for a watch, $20,000 for a watch because of the brand.
If you look at all the influencers in the world, Prime Energy and all these different types of, influencer, feastables, right? There are brands. There are brands that are fueled by influencers in these categories. And there's also tons of brands that are not fueled by influencers directly. Maybe indirectly, they have influencer programs. But the key there is you built a brand there. Going back to the agency side of things, the startup cost is a lot lower, as you kind of mentioned, right? You can start very, very easily. The time that it takes to begin, you put a website up, you have an initial plan on what kind of service offering you're going to be providing, maybe a little deck that you're going to be able to go through as you're talking to prospects. And then ultimately you need to, be able to win those clients over. And then you also, when you are building that agency, one of the big things you have to think about is you can't do everything by yourself. Eventually you have to get to that point where you are getting people that are helping service those agencies, so that when you are bringing, you are going hunting and you're bringing in that meat, you got someone that's there to gather the meat and take care of the meat, prepare the meat, and that goes to you having a sales team, and you have someone that's going to be there to fulfill the team. That is important for an agency business. We should talk a little bit about that side of things before we really dive deep into the agency best practices.
It's really important to have good people around, and it's really important to be able to train those people to continue scaling aside you and not necessarily so much just like waiting for you to give them orders. I innately don't like managing people. Not that I don't like people. I would just rather be growing the business, selling, and doing things of that nature. But you absolutely, and I learned this the hard way, you cannot do both. You have to have somebody come along so that they can complement whatever your trade is. Perfect example. I just hired a COO 2 weeks ago. Before that, I was fucking miserable. In all of these complex operations that were going on that, and by the way, it was complex to me. I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. I was depleting my energy. It was like 1 minute of thought during anything operations related took like 5 minutes of my soul away. So you could see how poorly that was balanced on the Libra scale. This guy comes in a week and a half ago. Like, it's all he does. It's all he knows. He's like, oh, this is a breeze. Like, just stay the fuck away from this. I'll get it taken care of. Hand on Bible, in the past 2 weeks, I've brought on like $20,000 worth of new business.
Because you've been focused on your superpower.
Because he's like, dude, like, you hired me to do this. I've done this over and over again for brands that are way bigger than yours. Not brands, but businesses. He's like, this is a walk in the park for me. Let me take care of it. Just go sell. And I realized to myself, I didn't want to hire somebody because I was like paying myself like 20, 30, 40 grand a month. I was like, this is great. I'm making money. I'm having a good time. I'm buying all this bullshit. And then I realized, like, just last week, I was like, if I hired this guy 3 months ago, how much better off would the business be right now? Yeah, absolutely. I bet we could have doubled our MRR in those 3 months. All that to say is, like, it's incredibly important to find the right people. What I find very interesting in you two is that you guys have very opposite but complementary skill sets. Ashkan, you're always balls deep in sales and growth, and you're balls deep in management, operations. And it's like, this wasn't by design. It was totally by chance. And you guys happen to be brothers, but it's a really good scenario. When you guys were building your agency to where it is now, which I won't say anything public, but it's a very meaningful sized business with hundreds of merchants that are working, or not working under you, but working with you. How did you guys start this up? And when did you understand, okay, we need to do this a specific way, and here's how we're going to shape the rest of the business?
Yeah, I think it naturally just kind of flowed that way. It wasn't like it was meant to be. Like we were running our own e-com brands at the time, or brand at the time. We were running as fast as humanly possible there. And I was, again, doing all of like the marketing, sales, and like acquiring of new clients there on that side of things. Purely on e-com, we were growing really, really rapidly. We had this idea around TalentPop, which is we're a customer service agency for e-com brands. And what I did is I just slowly like ended up creating the engine of acquisition, and I started acquiring, getting a couple of meetings in the books, and I would just go and sell them. And that's literally it. And once the client was sold, they'd be like, yo, Arman, like you're not really doing all this new client acquisition, the e-com side of things. You're doing other stuff. I'm just going to go and give you these customers once they're sold, and you need to figure everything else out as far as fulfillment goes. And it was one of those things where it's like, he respected that because I brought the clients in and I was running this massive e-com brand at the time. Like, all right, cool. Like, just keep bringing in customers. I'll take care of everything else. So Arman took care of like the hiring of the team members, building out SOPs, building out training material, trying to figure out how to manage people. And then as I transitioned, all right, this TalentPop thing is becoming meaningful over here. There's a lot of demand around this. It was just rational where it's all right, you just continue to own the fulfillment. I'm just going to sell 4 times, 5 times more people every month. And we'll just do this. And that's what ended up happening. We ended up having very clear cut definitions of whose roles and responsibilities are what. I am in charge of selling, bringing on new business. You are in charge of fulfillment, which means that I'm going to sell as many clients as humanly possible. And you are going to fulfill what needs to be done here. And if our clients say that we need something else, something additional, I'm going to sell that to them, and you are going to need to figure out how to provide that to them because you are in charge of fulfillment. And we never lose that element of things. There are times where I look over there and I pay attention to what's going on in customer success, or he looks at sales, but he's never going to look away from customer success. And
You're operating in your own silos.
Operating when we're seeing each other, but it's we never have to turn the sales engine off, and we never need to stop paying attention to our clients because efforts are dedicated towards 2 different topics.
And you want to know something about that? I could sell people. I could sell people all day long. Ashkan could come in and actually take care of our clients extremely well and do the job that I'm doing. But at the end of the day, our skills more naturally align in the areas that we are in. I'm probably better at operations than he is. He's better at sales than I am. So we focus on what we are better at, and we just double down on our true skill sets. And I think when you have someone that can complement you well, then you got to lean in on that. And for you, Saman, you didn't have that partner that can help you with your shortfalls and your shortcomings. So bringing on that COO made a lot of sense for your business. And I think that's an important dynamic as you are growing your business, as you are growing that agency. You have to be very, very honest with yourself in terms of what am I good at? What am I spending too much time on that's not my superpower? And what are the non-revenue generating activities that I need to get off my plate? So you have to add that third caveat as well. What are the non-revenue generating tasks that I need to get off my plate and have someone else that's probably better than you that can do that task as well? Those are the 3 critical things that you will be able to put yourself at least in a position, at least give yourself a fighting chance to go ahead and scale an agency.
It's counterintuitive, but when you're doing everything, you're used to doing everything. And as time goes by, doing less ends up in you doing more, if that makes sense. You want to go from everything to almost nothing. Do 1 or 2 functions really well. That's all you focus your effort on. It's a way higher leverage activity than everything else. And you want to get people to operate like that all across the organization. And that's when you're really firing off in the best capabilities that you have. Otherwise, you're spread too thin. You're not doing any of them all that great. And you're just not going to go as far as you humanly want to.
Another thing to also think about as you're growing an agency is a couple things. Number 1, your revenue model. It needs to be something that is scalable and ideally reoccurring. If you are having to work every single month to hunt, and once you go ahead and you fulfill that service, they're gone, you don't have the scale potential. You're always having to hunt for new and new, and you're not, growing sustainably and, being able to scale your business. So you really have to have that type of component where there is reoccurring revenue built in the business. And that's one of the things that we identified, with, the agency that we originally supported us as we were trying to build our customer service team for our e-commerce brand. I told you, they don't have a revenue model where they build on recurring revenue. They were just taking an upfront and just dropping off the team and being done. And I even told them, guys, you have your revenue model wrong. And they never obviously took action on that. But we saw that as a huge opportunity. Holy crap, the scale potential here that exists. So I think for agencies, you have to have that service offering that you can do on a repeatable basis. And it has to be scalable where it is reoccurring.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge that most agencies have is the fact that churn rate is so high. If you look at the average marketing agency, there's no way they can work with too many brands. They need to charge out the ass because their churn rate is so high. They can't manage too many accounts. And I think what that comes down to is like sometimes commoditized services. It's like, where's the white space in the industry that you're servicing? If you are doing what everyone else is doing, cool. Like you prove that there's an opportunity there. But at the same time, like where is the LTV? Where is the, what is the average churn rate there? Because eventually there's a time where acquisition, the amount of clients you're acquiring meets an equilibrium with the amount of clients you're churning. And you need to hope that is years and years down the line because your churn rate is as low as possible. But the reality for most agencies that are the average ad agency that's serving an e-com brand, their average tenure of a client is sub 6 months.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
3-4 months max.
And that's where you create the next level of the revolving door. And it's like, how do those guys continue to pay more deeper attention to fulfillment and just do a better job with their service offering? Because if you want to grow an agency, like we work with a little over 600 brands. If you grow to that point, you need to have a hell of a level of service.
But let's think about this too. The formula for churn is interesting because as you grow bigger, a lot of agencies plateau because they can't fight off their churn with more sales.
Yeah, it's an equilibrium point.
If you know that your average life cycle of a client is 4 months, every quarter and some change, you need a brand new, fresh list of customers. How difficult is that going to be for you? And can you ever get over the hump unless you're really organized, you have your processes in place, and you know what the fuck you're doing?
Well, that's why people like SaaS, right? SaaS is a significantly lower churn rate than service. But if you can get a sticky service, well, now you have way higher AOVs and LTVs, but and you have churn like a SaaS business. And that's when you have something really, really valuable.
This is a little off topic, but what I find to be very important in this whole mix, churn is very important, but also who your customer is and what you're charging them. I want to be very specific here. I want to only work with customers where the cost of our service is a rounding error in their set of books. What I mean by that is if you're working with a brand that's doing $5, $10, $15, $20 million plus, and let's say your service costs $3,000 a month, will they even care that they spent that money? Will it even make a dent in their system? The answer is no. But if you're working with a client that's doing, for example, $300,000 a year and you're charging them $3,000 a month, that's more than 10% of their gross revenue. They're going to be incredibly sensitive to price. They're probably going to be incredibly anal, and rightfully so. Like, it's not so much their fault, but it's like every penny counts and every move that you make is significant for them, whether you're a performance agency or you're servicing them with something. You have to make sure that once you find the niche, that you're serving people that not only can afford this, but people that don't even think about it once you're in their ecosystem. Because if you're constantly fighting churn and you're constantly fighting price sensitivity, you will never make it through as someone significant in the agency space. It'll literally be impossible. 1 step forward, 3 steps back. 1 step forward, 3 steps back.
Another kind of like to continue the conversation, what are other things that help you grow and scale as an agency is you need to be able to make decisions pretty quickly, especially once you're starting to bring revenue in. As you're starting to bring revenue into your business, you need to be able to figure out who are your next hires, right? You need to know who is, like, if me and Ashkan are starting, TalentPop here, who is our next hire, right? What are we weakest at? And in that, equation, what was the thing that we knew that it wasn't our best use of time doing? And that was recruiting, right? Being able to have that recruitment side of the business truly built out. And that's where we made our first hire, our first true hire in the business.
I think early on what it is, you grow and you hit a constraint. And whatever that constraint is, you're not going to grow until you
fix it.
Until you surpass that constraint. So it's like if you are attempting to fix a problem that is with a hire that is not the existing constraint you're at, you're going to hire that person, they're going to get trained up, but you're going to still be the exact point that you're at because you did not solve the constraint. So you need to be identifying as you progress up the street, what is it that is causing you to not continue to grow? Is it new client acquisition? Is it this vicious churn rate that you have? Is it a piece of the fulfillment? Like, I can no longer serve as many units of this pie as I need to go ahead and serve because we don't have enough graphic designers or whatever it happens to be. And I think that's where you hire. And you don't hire for strategic positions early on. You hire for someone that can get that specific job done. It needs to go and get done. So you can go to the next level of things and fill the next hole and the next level. And then you continue to progress until then, when you have a team, you can start hiring some strategic people on top of this.
The only exception to that is when the only time where you should think about hiring strategics before is, if you're raising a ton of money, you have a lot of money to play with, you probably want to hire the big dogs first, because then they're going to help grow the teams under them.
Do agencies really get funding? Have you thought about that?
I think not at the beginning, but when you're of size, absolutely.
I don't think I know. I don't know. Actually, matter of fact, I know for certain that I don't know any agency that's been funded.
Out the gate, or one that maybe they're massive and then PE bought into them?
Well, PE buying into it, I don't look at it as an investment. I look at that as an acquisition.
Yeah.
There's a ton of PE that will come in and buy agencies if they're doing well, but this isn't one of those industries where you really need to inject yourself with a lot of cash.
Yeah, I mean, early on, it's not.
You see that more in SaaS, right?
Way more in SaaS.
You'll see that in SaaS where they'll go ahead, even pre-revenue, start raising, and you're not going to necessarily hire you might not hire a junior designer first. You might hire the CTO, right? That's going to help build the technology.
Agreed.
Right, early on.
But in the agency game, it's a matter of low cost to walk in the front door there. It's you're grinding, you're growing, you're hiring as you have the need to go ahead and do so. You're not taking on capital early on to build something because there's just low startup costs, which is why it's such an advantageous business to, be the first thing that someone does.
There's a lot of them because, again, low barrier to entry. But I think what makes it really simple for the people that are doing things the right way is that most probably don't make it above, and this is a fictitious number, but $20,000, $30,000 a month. This is when all of those pains of growth really hit in. This is when churn starts hitting in. This is when price sensitivity from going after the wrong clients hit in. And you don't have the stamina and the wherewithal to push through it. And you just shut things down and say on to the next one.
That 93% of businesses never make over $1 million in revenue.
I believe it.
93% of businesses do not ever get over that that $1 million hump. And I think I guess the question that we should ask here, what are the things that people can do if they're looking to start an agency, they're early in their agency career, they haven't gotten over the hump? What are the things that they can do to at least break that $1 million barrier to the point where they can go and truly scale to that 8-figure, 9-figure revenue, opportunity? What are the things that they can do to get to that point?
One thing that's really important is creating a service that's hard to let go of. When you look at paid advertising, it's very performance-based. But the problem is there's a lot of variables that are involved that aren't necessarily the fault of the media buyers that get the media buyers blamed for.
Yeah, you can't guarantee that success.
I'll give you a perfect example, okay? Swings in the algorithm, right? That's totally out of your control. You could have been having a kick-ass month and then 1 or 2 weeks shit hits the fan. It's not on you. Second thing, let's say you're working with a brand with a great product but really shitty ads. Or let's say you're working with a company that has great ads but really shitty product. It's the cards are stacked against you, and if you're not performing for them, they're just going to let you go. You want to create a service that's hard to get away from. I'll give you a perfect example from my use case. First thing is, a bookkeeping agency isn't that sexy, so a lot of people don't want to start it. Second thing is, when people get signed up with a bookkeeper, they really don't want to leave. It's a pretty cumbersome thing to put together, and it's even more annoying for the actual owner of the business to try to find somebody else. But now I think about it how can we retain them even more? If we started doing their taxes for them, would they stick around longer? If we started facilitating their payroll, would they stick around longer? If we started filing their sales tax for them, would they stick around longer?
It becomes more sticky and important for their business. They depend on you.
That's exactly right. The word is sticky and the word is reliant. When you have those two things, you're in a great position. And I'm going to say this, but take it with a grain of salt. If you have all of those bases covered, even if you're not doing any one of those services particularly well, so long as it's decent or good enough, they will continue to stick around because you're all encompassing.
I think you're just in a better position than the average agency. You're not going to guarantee them sticking around, but you are in a better position than the one that needs to be driving the absolute results, which they don't have control of.
That's it. And it's not performance-based.
Yeah.
For us, it's binary.
I think for your use case, I think that I told you this a while ago, and I don't know the complexity of it. This is just me being like, hey, clients just need this, figure it out type of thing. But I think payroll, because I'm just coming from my own perspective of it. Like, we have a company. I would have moved over here for you doing our books a while ago, but they also do our payroll. And if I go and I feel like, and it's probably not the truth, but I feel like if I move from my existing bookkeeping keepers that are also doing our payroll and I move somewhere else, my hundreds of employees that I'm paying for right now might like not get their salary paid or some issue there with it. And it's like, that can like do or die my business. You know what I mean?
I agree with that sentiment, but think about this. You're a service-based business. I'm only servicing e-commerce.
Excellent.
How many employees do you have?
Even if you have more than one, they need to get paid.
Right, but you set it up on Gusto once and you're done.
You're assuming people are setting it up on Gusto.
I know they are. I'm behind their books.
I don't know. I think that no matter what, if you make it one of those things where we're going to also take
and
over
if they're
your
not,
payroll,
you should do it for them.
Agreed. And we do. The same idea that you have is with economic nexus, with filing sales tax. That's going to be the big opportunity for us.
Yeah.
Because the same way that you have hundreds of people on your payroll that you have to pay, and if you switch it, it'll be a disaster. It's the same way with sales tax.
Here's another one that I think is actually for your business is important is financial reporting. I think one big thing that a lot of these brands don't have is the ability to truly see their reporting in real time. If you had like a clean financial reporting dashboard where it really shows them the most important KPIs to their business that they can see in real time, that SaaS product is really, really reliable. And if you layer in insights to that, if you can find a way to layer insights to the data that they're able to see, now you give them the equipment to actually go ahead and make business decisions. I think that's a really sticky point as well, because now you're actually helping them grow with something that is very valuable.
We introduced that like 6 months ago and it was absolutely incredible. And now all of the new prospects that I talk to, I show them the report. It's like an 80% uptake rate. They all drool over it because at the end of the day, it's funny that it's like, this is a desired outcome and a perception thing. What's important is your P&L and your balance sheet. What they care about are the shiny graphs.
That's what they need.
Because that's what they enjoy looking at. And it boils down all of that data into something that's really palatable that makes sense. It costs us almost nothing to do it. And we have great margins on it. And I think it's our highest value proposition to date.
And does it like offer a lot of value? Do you get feedback from your clients in terms of the value that
if you're
that
shooting
report
over a
gives?
raw
they
workbook,
love it.
like if you think about it, a lot of accounting firms, maybe not you, but they send over like these raw Excel workbooks that are like
they're just worms.
Not even Google Sheets. It's like, bro, like I am on a Mac.
It's
My version of Excel is not
paper.
good. And it's like, dude, don't like, I have this and there's 25 tabs on this thing of just different scenarios. Like, dude, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. But like a nice little report with a beautiful, colorful graph.
Yeah.
With great color and maybe some arrows of pluses or minuses.
So what we did, which was very important, is I didn't want to build it assuming what they wanted. I took 25 of our clients and I was like, I'll give this to you for free for 4 months. I just need you to give me feedback on what you want. Beautiful thing about giving somebody an offer like that is that they all tend to listen. So everybody sent us feedback on exactly what they wanted to see. The majority of them wanted the same stuff. So we built out a couple of rough drafts. Change this, change that. Let's make this look better. Let's make that look better. Da, 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 da. Third, fourth, fifth iteration came in. And what I notice is we're creating very complex structures around this that they don't necessarily care for. Like it's very important, but they don't understand how to read into it. So we dumbed everything down like 3 notches and everybody just fell in love with what we offered. And again, you talk about colors. We made everything color coordinated. We wrote explanations, like simple one-liners to where anybody could understand. And we put it in a nice chronological order to tell a story like a novel would. And they just drool over to eat it up.
This is what you made.
Yeah, right. That's it. Here's your net profit. Here are your contribution margins. Here's what your total ROAS is. Here are your KPIs.
Do you have
asset.
like month-to-month comparisons on like, can you go into like the expense line items and see the month-to-month changes in expense and understand what is, your expense here went up 15% this month. Why did
we show a rolling quarter to quarter, even if it's like intra-quarter, but like a rolling 3 months and a rolling month to month. It'll show you the variance not only in dollars, but in percentages. And we have a formula built in that if anything goes above our variance, which is 7.8%, that it makes the whole line item bold and red. So like, hey, this is something you need to look into. And if it's the same reaction for sales, like if your sales go up 20% or whatever, we put 10.3%, it'll make the whole thing green. So not only can you see the variances in dollars and percentages, it's also color coordinated. It also bolds out what we think went wrong and what we think went well. It's literally that level of hyper granular understanding that people really appreciate it. And it's funny. It's like, we can't get there without great bookkeeping. Otherwise, those numbers would be inaccurate. But once you have the great bookkeeping and you add this on top, it's the perfect combo.
What's the takeaway? Like we just kind of went into a 5-minute rabbit hole. We talked about this additional offering to your business. What is the takeaway of going deeper with supporting your clients and giving them more that's important to them in terms of their ability to scale their business? Does it create more stickiness as a result? Does it allow them to actually see how you can actually help them grow their business? What are the takeaways from going deeper in that journey there?
More product offerings equals more money. Yep. You're basically at profit at that point, minus whatever marginal labor there is, because you've already acquired the customer, right? Second thing is you make things way more sticky. Third thing is just in total, when you think about enterprise value, if a PE firm comes and says, okay, every client is worth $2,000 versus every client being worth $10,000, $15,000, what do you think that does for the value of the business? So that's like extrinsic value. Everything else is intrinsic, but there's a lot of good that comes from going deep and going wide and solving a problem. Now, I want to turn the tables. You guys are just coming out with some, what I want to call upsells or some deeper value adds for what your service offering is. You've been with customer service and customer service reps for a very long time. What is the new line that you guys are about to launch, and why did you decide this route over everything else?
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, we've been offering customer support for e-com brands. What we do is we run dedicated team members to help handle customer support for them. But everyone's kind of familiar with like the virtual assistant model and things like that. So a lot of the clients that we work with are like, hey, I'm leveraging my customer service rep for these 10 things outside of customer support.
Administrative work, for example.
Administrative work. So Shopify backend. Some people bringing on bookkeepers for various roles, operational roles. We have graphic designers, influencer outreach.
What did you say?
Bookkeepers, dedicated. But yeah, like there's a big need for all of these administrative things that need to go and get done inside small, medium, or large e-com brands. And we look at some of our largest clients we have, and we're like, all right, cool. Well, what do they have within their organization? And we're seeing all these other roles that they need assistance with. So we surveyed our customer base. We said, hey, we're obviously helping you with customer support. What are your big other needs? And I think that's the first step. Survey your customers, get a gauge of what they actually want.
I'm so glad you said that. I wanted to cut this off for a second and realize that we both did something without even thinking about this, like syncing together. Instead of trying to figure out what people want, go to the people that are already paying you and ask them.
Yeah, because if not, you're going to make an assumption. You have no idea what's actually going to occur. But survey your customer base. We surveyed, I think, 500, 600 customers. We had 79 results back from it. And they were like, all right, here's what I need.
That's great.
And what we heard was there's 2 roles. One is a creative marketing role. So that was the number 1 requirement, which was like, think video editor, graphic designer, creating of graphics for email newsletters, graphics on site, UGC ads, editing up, ad creative, different things like that.
A Photoshop goon.
Photoshop or video goon. Yeah. So based off of their needs, someone with the creative skill set. And the second one is like an administrative marketing assistant. So think backend, Shopify, reporting, analytics, making modification to ads, turning ads on or off, launching your email marketing on Klaviyo, getting it all scheduled, putting them to your customized segmented list, that type of stuff. So off of that, we're like, all right, cool. Here's what the big core needs actually were. And now what we did was we spent the last few months really productizing this. So what does that look like? What does training need to look like for that? So we built out full training curriculums around it. What does the hiring process need to look like? We built out the hiring process around it. What does the management process look like for that? The management for that is very different than the management and QA for customer support. So we built all those unique processes out there. And on the survey, we said, hey, when would you like to hear about this? And I think 70% of all of the people said, hey, please get back to me within the next 3 months on this service offering. So our team has been working across the board on getting this done, working very, very hard of being able to put this service offering out there in the marketplace. Right now, we are just slammed with customer service demand internally.
Because Q4 is coming up.
It's wild right now.
Yeah, this is definitely the busiest we've ever been at our company. We just have a tremendous amount of not only new business coming in, but also clients that are expanding as we enter the busiest time of the year. And we are just like thin on bandwidth, and we want to make sure we provide our existing customers the best level of service before offering a second level of service to that customer base. So we completed everything, got everything good to go, but we haven't like fully launched this to our customer base, or definitely not to the public at this point yet, until we're kind of coasting through what's going on.
But again, the bones of it, the meat and potatoes, are very similar between both ends, almost identical. If you're going to spend time to build out a new division, you want to do it for the people that are already within your ecosystem that have demanded it at scale. This wasn't a onesie or twosie ask and create, because you're putting a lot of time and effort and resources into it.
It's a big bet.
But now you make the big bet. You know that, let's say out of the 79 people, let's say 50 people sign up, or even 30 people sign up. Even with all that work that you did, those 30 people signing up, even if it doesn't go one client more, I bet those clients stick around with you longer. I bet your LTV gets juiced, and I bet they're very happy to refer somebody else over your way.
It just creates that marketing validation of, this is a product that brands want to see, and we're going to go out and, you know, get a ton more new prospects to come to our business. They'll learn about TalentPop and our offering from a different perspective. And then eventually they'll learn about what we do from customer service. So now we have ways to get in front of more brands that may not be in the need for customer service in that moment.
But there's a whole different market out there that's ready to come in.
And I think it's the idea of pivoting, right? It's moving slightly lateral and identifying where the opportunities that make sense are and when it's like just too far. Whereas like for your business, if it's bookkeeping, it's like, cool, what's slightly lateral? Reporting, payroll, taxes, maybe like that type of stuff. What's too lateral? Email marketing.
It's just, you can't make that make sense in any capacity.
And here's a thing that neither of us have did. You're not providing bookkeeping for real estate agents. We're not providing customer service for car companies. We are very, very focused on providing the exact service to a specific industry.
But this is what Ashkan talked about earlier. It's like your acquisition cycle is very important. Imagine how many different language build-outs, how many different funnels, how many different softwares, the list goes on and on.
Different training,
different trainings, different everything you have to have. And your service at the end of it is going to suck. If you just hone all of your effort into one niche, you're so much better off, because now you can iterate on it. You can make the tools sharper. You're essentially machine learning against yourself. If you just do it for a long enough amount of time and practice, it would be unreasonable to not do well.
The best ad agency for e-commerce brands does not service all other industries. You know what I mean? They're not just the best advertising agency for everything. The best, web development company has a focus. They focus on a specific industry. It's because that's what it is they know. The best marketing agency for automotive does not serve e-com. They probably just specifically serve automotive because their solution is literally built for a specific audience. And guess what? Their fulfillment becomes easier. It becomes more sustainable. It's a better product. Their churn rate goes down. Their cost to produce the service goes down. And it's just a net win. If the TAM, total addressable market, is large enough to build a massive business in one place, don't look left and start like looking at all of the other people. Like your aunt knows someone that might need assistance with bookkeeping. It's like, no, don't
throw it out the window.
Don't do that, because that is going to take you 5 times more operational time to onboard that aunt's friend over there. And they're not going to be as happy with the level of service because the service was not built for them.
I want to run through an exercise of how specific you can get within a niche. We're both in e-commerce, right? But let's go through the step-by-step and go down the line. I'm a bookkeeping agency for e-commerce brands. I'm a bookkeeping agency for Shopify merchants. I'm a bookkeeping agency for Shopify merchants in the apparel space. I'm a bookkeeping agency for Shopify merchants in the apparel space that are generating between $2 to $10 million a year. And then you could take that even one step further and say that are only on either cash or accrual-based accounting. You've niched down and you may have lost some TAM, but if you become the subject matter expert for that specific niche within an already specific niche, imagine how much damage you can produce, like how well you can do.
You become the guy.
You become the go-to guy, and there's no better leverage than being the go-to guy.
And when you get on that sales call with that person and they know that your solution is built out for them and only them, that sales pitch, it doesn't matter who the brand is an easy pitch. I had this conversation today with a huge enterprise brand, might be one of the most well-known, fastest growing e-commerce brands that there is. And
Bloomy Wellness?
Not necessarily Bloomy. They're a little too fast growing, unfortunately. But by getting on that conversation with them, they're working with a company that does something similar to what it is that we do, but they have these problems and I understand their problems. The reason why they have these problems is because the company they work with does not service businesses like them and like them only. They don't have a solution that's only built for them. And I tell him about ours and he's like, all right, cool. It makes sense why this is going to work and why I'm running into the issues that I'm running into. And it just becomes that much easier of a sale.
What it comes down to is, and this is funny to think about, but it's the truth. You know more about what they need than they do. And they will listen to you and you will be their shining star and their guiding light. You build that trust immediately and it's game over from there. That's what it comes down to. If you're talking about real estate and they're selling pillows, what the fuck do they care about you for? But if you only do this for pillow companies and you've seen what they haven't seen, not only are they going to come and stick around for you just because they like the proximity, but you're going to do things for them that they didn't even know that they needed. And that's a beauty of an agency that really niches down.
Here's one more thing that we haven't talked about that I think will be a good final segment in this conversation in terms of the agency and what you should be doing to be successful is chances are you as the founder of the business are probably the most knowledgeable in that subject matter. The opportunity that you have is when you scale a team, not every single person you're going to bring on comes with all of those nuts and bolts. So you better be able to have a culture that focuses on training and development and education. And if you do not invest in upticking your team's growth and helping them get better and better and become masters of their craft, you're never going to be able to offer a great service at scale. Because then if they're getting someone that's not fully trained in a certain area, they're getting a diluted service offering. So being able to make sure that you have the right training, the right standard operating procedures, the right leadership to help, oversee that team. Those are the things that you need to do in order to get to a place where you're starting to scale, you're starting to see some growth. That is one of the biggest advices that I can share once you're getting to that place where, hey, maybe you're in that 7-figure mark and you're trying to get the next leap. You need to make sure that you are investing in the education and the training for your team.
We only have about 30, 35 people on the team, so it's pretty sustainable to do that. You guys have tons and tons and tons and hundreds of team members. How do you go about doing that to keep everybody on the same page and to continue keeping them excited on not only what the vision is and what the journey that they're going through on, but the training and everything in between?
So you said 2 big words there, mission and vision. There needs to be clarity on where the boat is heading from day one. You need to know, what is this company about? What are we aiming to do in the marketplace? And are we all aligned on the things that are important from a business perspective? It all starts there. Once you get to a place where you have that all clearly aligned, then it comes down to having a hands-on training process, not video watching, not reading guides. It needs to be a hands-on, multi-dimensional training process. You do need a little bit of, SOP to be reading. You need videos to be watching, but you also need the opportunity to shadow. You need the opportunity to let that new team member get in the weeds and have that senior team member there to handhold them through the process. Everyone learns differently, and you need the opportunity for those people that learn differently to get all of that information in the right way. So the videos, where does it come in? The videos are the prep work. Watching the videos gets you kind of in tune with, hey, these are what the processes are, and these are how we use them. The hands-on training is there because that allows them to take what they learned in those videos. Maybe they, were able to consume and understand 40, 50, 60% of it. The hands-on gets them to that 80 to 90% amount where they can kind of watch it in action. And then how do you get them over the hump? Consistency of having them go through it themselves with someone supporting them. And then ultimately, once they are live and in the role, there needs to be consistent development of that team member. So, it's doing training workshops with your team. We do them at least twice a month for our customer success team.
No shit.
We invest a lot in training and developing them. Ashkan will get on calls weekly with the sales team. I would even say probably more than that in terms of just helping them. How could they, go through game film, and how do they, better
I like that.
discuss, a specific key area. This is what could have been brought up in that conversation. QA, being able to kind of quality assurance. Hey, there's an opportunity for you to structure this email a little bit better. You should have asked this potential question because it would have gotten this specific outcome.
Right.
So knowing how to pinpoint those things and taking the time to iterate, perfect, fine tune, that kind of full system allows team members to continue to develop within their role, get better and better, add more value to your clients over time. And that creates more stickiness within your business.
E-commerce is about the product. Services are about the people.
Absolutely. So what are kind of like, to wrap up here as we close out here, what is the one takeaway that you will give to the audience here when it comes to being able to start and manage and successfully grow an agency?
The moment you even have a remote thought that you need to add somebody else on the team, do it.
Assuming you have the cash to do so.
Even if you don't. So for example, let's say that you're making a couple $1,000s in profit and this person will wipe all of that profit out. Do it. And I'll tell you why. It's exactly as I said before. If you put a minute of effort into something that drains you and it takes away 5 minutes of your clarity, you're always going to be a step behind. You may not make money, and I'm not saying lose money, but I'm saying you may break even in the interim. Let's say 1 or 2 weeks as they get their feet going. After that, whatever you were making before, if you play your cards right, you will absolutely exponentially outgrow. Because now you have 2 brilliant minds versus one, both hoping that its complementary skill sets will push you way further, way faster. And you want to keep doing that over and over and over and over again. Hire earlier than you think.
And you can also necessarily hire someone of an equal opposite skill set first. You can also think about hiring a couple of junior people that will take stuff off your plate so you can continue to scale a little bit more that way. So there's 2 different approaches to that. But the hiring, when you feel uncomfortable, do it.
I hired a COO because candidly, I could afford it. I could have hired somebody a long time ago that was more affordable, and I still bet we would be better off. The goal is to have somebody that's decently good, that enjoys the thing that you don't, put them in the mix and keep going from there. It doesn't have to be C-suite. It doesn't have to be strategic. Just somebody to do the thing that you don't like to do that genuinely enjoys doing it in return.
Cool.
So that's one thing that I would really preach to people. Don't worry about the money. If all of the other parts of the business are going well, the money will come and you will continue growing. Make a temporary short-term sacrifice for the bigger picture. That's what I got.
Ashkan.
Identify one service and one target audience that you want to be able to sell to, and don't deviate from that. And make sure that the audience that you're selling into is one that you can actually successfully sell into, meaning they're identifiable. You're able to identify who they are, where they are. They are the core decision maker. I think selling to medical is very difficult because you're talking to a front desk that is trained to just throw away any of your shit that you get or just delete your email. You want to be able to speak directly with who is a decision maker. And the third thing is making sure that they have the cash to make the purchase. When you're working with personal trainers or real estate agents, personal trainers didn't always have the cash to pay for the level of service. Real estate agents had no idea when their next commission was going to come in, so they couldn't invest into a quality service. Being able to find something that you can go into that makes the right sense, that meets those 3 levels of criteria, and there's millions of things that do, is thing number one. And from there, do not deviate from there. Be able to build an excellent solution on exactly what it is they need. And then ideally, like Saman said, have a partner that you can bring on board or as early as possible, maybe not immediately day one, but as quickly as possible, that'll allow person A to focus on acquisition and of new customer, new business. That way it's always coming in. And person B in charge of fulfilling the service that was offered. And what probably will end up happening is you will need to continue to hire for fulfillment. Your next 10 roles that you hire for will probably be in fulfillment before you hire another person in sales. But it's important to make sure that sales machine is always going so it never stops. And very important to make sure that that customer success team is providing a great level of service. And ideally, one of the founders is handling that function of the business. That way you can really learn more about what your customers need so you can continue to iterate your service to give them exactly what they want.
Well said. Beautiful.
Final takeaway, I think yours kind of covered a lot of the meat and bones. I'm going to give something that I think is really important that we didn't talk about today as a final nugget. Speed over creating. And what I mean by that is when you are growing a business, you sometimes try to over perfect a product. You try to over perfect an offering. And you need to get your offering off the ground and get some wheels around it and learn from your customers on how to make it better. If you spend too much time over engineering a service offering and not being able to get this in front of people, you're trying to make everything super pretty. You're wasting your time on making the website look good. You're wasting time.
Which font you should be using.
Perfecting the presentation, optimizing every little part of the email. Get something going. Start talking to customers. Understand their needs. Start serving them and do a fucking good job at serving them so that they come back for more and they tell their friends about it and build that momentum that allows you to continue to scale. So speed over engineering your business and your processes. I think that's a really big takeaway.
I'll give one last anecdotal thing that I thought about. Raise your prices to the point where you feel uncomfortable presenting it to somebody else. I really mean that. Get comfortable throwing out a price that's uncomfortable for you to mention. And I bet you the people that take it will happen. I bet you will have more people take it than you thought. And I bet the quality of the clients that you're bringing in at that price point that makes you go oof are better than what you previously had as well. And you might think to yourself, you may not be confident in your service, but if you think about it objectively, the more money that comes in, unless you're an asshole and are trying to spend it all, it means you can hire better people. It means you can make your processes more efficient. It means that you can enrich services that your clients are receiving. It makes the full ecosystem enriched because now you have leverage to do better with the resources that you were given. Otherwise, if you're spread too thin, if your margins are too low, if your price is too low, you'll always be fighting with your back against the wall and you won't be able to make those key hires or better the systems that you've been working so hard on anyways. That's really important. And I think that people forget about it all the time.
If I'm listening to this podcast, I'd probably listen to it twice. There's so many things that we talked about in this episode that you should be taking notes on. So if you're driving a car, you're at the gym, wherever you're listening to this, I would honestly listen to this again, reverse back, and really take notes because there's so many takeaways that you're not going to really see other people talk about. I don't think they go into this level and this many kind of subject areas where we gave you things that you can go in and really run with it and help go in and actually scale a business. People would pay for this type of advice.
This is actionable data. We're not talking about theory. We're talking about what you actually have to do to get it going. And if there's anybody that you can trust, it's people that are actually making money profitably, hiring people and serving hundreds of clients. Better than the jackass on the road that's teaching you a cold email course. So
if someone was
choice is yours.
If someone was paying for my time and they were asking how I would scale an agency, I would tell them exactly what we talked about today.
But how much did you charge them? Millions.
$1 million.
Fire dinner.
Guys, with that said, this is Your Fifth Friend podcast. We're super excited to have you guys part of this, journey with us. Like, subscribe, give us all the love. We want to see you guys share this with more people. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for your time.